Welcome, AMA members, to this video recorded District 1 February Zoom meeting with guest speaker Tyler Dobbs, AMA's Government Affairs Director, who will bring you up to date on the status of government regulations and model aircraft flight operation requirements and expectations for 2022.
My name's Daren Hudson, and I live in Greenland, New Hampshire, cover New Hampshire, Massachusetts, anywhere Andy needs me, really. Outreach is my game. That's where I get my rewards, facilitating stuff like this, getting people together, enjoying the hobby and expanding the hobby. So thank you very much for everyone coming. Thanks for the AVPs for being here. And I want to hand this off to Tyler now. And I'm going to give Tyler pre-permission after he speaks. He's been working all day. You are welcome to leave at any point after the guys finish and the girls have finished with their question and answers. So
Tyler's going to get up. He's going to get up and leave right now.
Not yet. That's why I added after the question and answers. Not yet.
No, I've got all night. I want to make sure everybody gets there.
Feel free to leave. You will not be offending anyone if you take off. So Tyler, Thank you very much for being here. I work with Tyler a lot on the SRM the panels, and it's been a pleasure. He's really doing us a real great service.
Well, I appreciate everybody being here tonight and appreciate Andy and all the AVPs. It's easy to forget that you guys are in volunteer positions, and we often take advantage of that, but you guys put in a lot of time and a lot of effort. And as you mentioned with these, especially SRM panels, and your district has been extremely helpful and active in those panels, and simply couldn't do it without you all. So appreciate all the time and effort you put into it, and appreciate how active that your district is. So thank you. I am just going to kind of get started on an update, and Andy, Daren, I know you guys develop questions. We're happy to tackle those. However you think is best, I'm happy to go that route, but I thought I'd give an update on the topics that were outlined in the invitation, and then we can kind of tackle those questions as we go through each topic. So I want to just kind of keep it laid back, and if you have a question, don't be afraid to raise your hand or just unmute yourself and tell me to be quiet for a minute while you ask it. So go through. There are a lot of irons in the fire right now. We are probably the busiest that we've ever been since the 2018 FAA Re-authorization, which removed the special rule for model aircraft and put some new requirements that recreational operators now follow. That didn't turn out exactly how we wanted. We had a lot of pushback from the commercial industry and really a lot of Fortune 500 companies, with Amazon and the Commercial Drone Alliance, which makes up Ford and Verizon and AT&T and a host of others. But things are turning around and things are going in the right direction. To be honest, we all view the FAA as a thorn in our side, but we're closer with them now than we have been. They're accommodating us more than they ever have in the past. Do we still approach everything we do with them with caution? You bet we do. Fortunately, we're in their back pocket now, so we need to be careful how hard they sit down, or else we're gonna get bit a little bit. Right now, we're awaiting the release of the new advisory circular 9157 Charlie. We're currently operating under Bravo edition. What that new advisory circular is going to include is a process for organizations like AMA to be officially recognized through the CBO recognition process. And we actually wrote that legislation, and we said, well, we'd like this CBO recognition process to be done through an advisory circular rather than a regulatory or rulemaking process, thinking that it'd be quicker. Unfortunately, at the very same time as legislation was being passed, the FAA was updating their advisory policy and stating if any new advisory that comes out is going to take 2 years. It's going to be a process almost identical to the rulemaking process. So unfortunately, we didn't save any time, but we're almost there. We're almost at the finish line, and that advisory is almost released. We were hoping it to come out in February, actually February 28th. That has been pushed back. We're now hearing that the FAA is going to release it sometime in April. What that advisory is going to do beyond the CBO recognition, it is also going to allow night operations to resume in controlled airspace. As things stand right now, you can continue to fly in uncontrolled airspace at night, but you're required to have authorization to fly in controlled airspace. The FAA won't give that authorization currently in controlled airspace at nighttime. So once that's released, we can resume those operations. We assume it will be a path through the drone zone where you go to register your model aircraft. You'll go through that same portal to request night operations.
Mhm.
So I'll pause there. Any questions on the advisory circular and the release?
What are you saying now, that you think that that will be done within the next few months? It'll be done in time, say, for example, for us at that point to, to get ready for FRIA sites and so
So
forth?
we are expecting, as long as the release date doesn't change, that will come out sometime in April. What we're not sure of is if the FAA has their website updated to accept CBO recognition. We think it will be close. So we do feel within the next 2, 3, 4 months, AMA will be officially applying to be a community-based organization and getting that status.
Okay, I have one other question relative to that. We sent in, or you sent in, some comments. And the one that's always bothered us, and of course you as well, is when they say an operator or a pilot doesn't have to be a member of a CBO to fly under its guidelines. Has that, or do we know what the outcome of that comment is? Are we going to ever get that so that it makes some sense to us?
We don't know. Unfortunately, the way the rules that the FAA are required to follow is they have to publicly announce any changes to their documents in an official setting. So AMA can't reach out and say, hey, did you make the change to this advisory circular regarding this membership requirement? And they respond. Everybody will find out at the same time what has been addressed, what public comments were addressed in the final version of the advisory circular. But Andy's right. And just to give a little background, in the advisory circular, AMA maintains that to operate within our programming, you have to be a member. You have to accept the financial responsibility through AMA membership. You have to sign and affirm that you're going to follow AMA safety guidelines. And we need your contact information so that we can send you safety notifications, such as temporary flight restrictions that are in your area. So those 3 pillars really are really important to operate under AMA safety programming. And if you don't do those things, we don't consider you operating within our programming. What the FAA is saying is that you can operate within a community-based organization's programming without actually being a member of that organization. We're not saying that you have to be a paid member of any organization. If another CBO wants to pop up and offer everything that AMA does for free, great. We welcome that competition, but please, government, don't tell our organization how we're going to run our organization. So we ask that the FAA remain silent on the requirement to be a member. We're not forcing people to be a member, but we also don't want you to say that you can be a part of our safety programming without actually joining and signing up and affirming that you're going to follow our rules.
And I've often mentioned to the membership, especially here in District 1, that it's the support system that provides the safety that we have. If you were to say to me, when I first started, did I go to the AMA document section and read all the rules about operating whatever type of aircraft I was operating? No, I didn't. I went to a flying site. I got mentored by a club member. I learned everything at that flying site to be a safe operator. And I think the FAA will learn that if they're allowing people just to operate under guidelines alone, papers and written instructions, they're going to fail, because those people still don't have the knowledge that we get directly from the people in the clubs, you people that are out there doing this on a day-to-day basis. So I think that support system is really accounts for the fact that our safety record is so impeccable.
Yeah, and we are ready to submit our application. If they would release it tomorrow, we would be ready to submit tomorrow. We did a comprehensive review of our safety programming and made updates. Andy can vouch for that. I woke up every day for weeks to an email from him with recommended changes to the advanced technology documents and FPV operations and a host of other things. So all of those things have been scoured over for the past few months and updated. So AMA is prepared to do so. We don't think we will be the only organization that applies and receives CBO recognition, but we think it will be most likely a small number. We think that there are probably a lot of groups that want to apply and think they're going to apply and get that status. However, if the FAA expects to maintain the same level of safety that we have in the airspace today, which we think that they do, it's just simply not feasible for that many organizations to be able to create programming that's set to the same level as what AMA has. You have to have safety programming that covers all aspects of model aviation, not just a portion here or there. So it's going to have to be a pretty comprehensive set of standards that these groups are going to have to submit and get approved by the FAA.
Tyler, looks like we have a hand up. Tim Sowder has a question, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Hey, Tyler, it's Tim Sowder from New Hampshire. Got a question for the you said the night operations for the 44809. So in Class G airspace, we're allowed to fly right now up to 400 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Night operations in Class G have not changed.
Okay. So then, so our club is in Class G airspace. I'm sorry, Class D airspace. And in our letter of agreement, silly enough, I did for daytime only. But would it be feasible to, once this circular comes out, to put in a letter of agreement with the control tower to have night operations?
Yes, actually, in preparation for the release of this, my team, as well as air traffic operations within the FAA, have been working on a provision that, if the air traffic control manager agrees to, can just be added as an amendment to the current letter of agreement. So you won't have to go through that negotiation process. There'll just be that clause added to those LOAs.
Right. Okay. And last question is about the doing the LAANC request. So they just recently added, was it November, I think it was, when they added the Part 107s could do that, and then a LAANC operator could approve it. So they're going to increase the LAANC so it can accept 44809 now, once the circular comes out. Is that what you're saying?
So LAANC is already, you can already request authorizations for daytime through LAANC. We think that once that process switches over, once the advisory circular comes out, night operations are approved, we think that will be allowed through LAANC. We are being told that it will definitely be allowed through the drone zone. What we're not sure of is if night operations will be permitted under 44809 for everybody, or if they'll be permitted at fixed flying site locations. So that's yet to be determined.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tyler.
Oh, you're welcome.
Tyler, I was also wondering about, would we be in any competition with educational institutions? For example, can they apply for a CBO? Are they just going to operate, you think, for the most part, under our CBO guidelines?
I think we should expect some educational institutions to apply for CBO status. I know for a fact the University of California, the person who heads up that UAS program, he's an AMA member, devout AMA member. He backs us and supports us 100%, but I've had conversations with him, and his university will apply for that status. What's going to, right now they follow AMA safety guidelines and our rules. What I'm not sure of is, and I made him aware, he won't be able to apply for that status and use our safety programming. The FAA is going to want their own safety programming. If an AMA club wants to apply, our safety programming's out the window at that point. They would have to develop their own and get that approved. They would have to have a point of contact to do all the things that, AMA does with the FAA and government. So, that's severing ties, so to say. If an AMA group like these universities, if they go and try to get their own CBO status, the FAA is only going to accept one CBO with that set of safety guidelines, and they're all going to have to be unique.
Well, that's interesting because obviously I'd rather not compete with them. I'd rather work with them and hope to acquire some flying sites as a result of those efforts. I see it as a potential for us to have both indoor, maybe, and even outdoor facilities. In Massachusetts alone, we have 13 sites on conservation and wildlife and fisheries. We're shaking on some because of the new administrators that come in, but I think through efforts like Tyler does with the politicians and on a national level, we can help now to form a different opinion of us than existed in the past and give ourselves a better chance to acquire these types of flying sites. Where in the past, we were looked at as a bunch of old men flying toy airplanes. Now that we've been recognized, even though we went through a rough process by the FAA, our chances now, I think, are going to be better rather than worse.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you're right, Andy. I think a majority of these universities will fall under the AMA umbrella. I just think that University of California, for instance, they have hundreds of people who participate in their UAS program. So I do think that's a unique situation where they're trying to draw people to their university for that specific goal. And so that's why they feel it makes sense to have their own CBO and be a part of that. But overall, I do think you're going to see groups flock to the recognized CBOs and try to operate under their umbrella. Like we see with the trust test, we had, I think, originally about 30 organizations that wanted to apply for that. As we started getting closer to the release date, we were down to 25. I think when the test actually released, there was 21. I looked the other day, I think there's 18 listed. And if you look at the numbers, the top few, I'll say 4 or 5 organizations are doing 40, 50, 60,000 tests a piece. The bottom, there's one that has a couple dozen that they've administered over the past 8 or 9 months. So while they had high hopes that they were going to administer this trust test and get some high numbers, the reality of it is that people are going to the organizations that have been around for decades and have a proven and tested safety record.
Hey, Tyler. We try and encourage our members to use the AMA portal for the trust test.
Absolutely.
Could you touch on a little what the real significance of that is? Since I didn't really know what you just said, the fact that the number of official suppliers of the test has cut down so much. I had no idea that happened.
Yeah, there's really, I mean, we obviously wanted to offer trust to our membership as a member benefit and to be able to provide it to our members, and our members know that they're at a trusted site. Their data is not going to be taken and sold or stored or anything like that. Why we ask you to come to AMA simply is because we want to show that all of our members have taken the trust test. If I go to the FAA and I say, hey, we're the rule followers, we're the ones that don't create safety issues in the airspace, and they say, well, we looking at your trust numbers and you guys have only administered 5,000 tests. Why is that? It's hard to say, well, they're probably going to another site. Now, the fact of the matter is that some AMA members have went to other sites. Unfortunately, for the first couple of days when we released the test, we just got so bombarded, it fried the servers. They went down and we had to switch them over to a few other servers. Under that time, we don't know the exact number, but we're guessing about 15,000, 20,000 people went to other locations to take that test. So the numbers are a little skewed. That being said, AMA has still risen to the top, and the numbers grow every single day. But it's important that when we make the statements that we follow the rules, our aircraft are registered, we're following safety programming, that we have the proof to back that up. And trust is only one piece of that, but it is a piece of it. So it's important that we have high numbers, and we do. They don't represent every single AMA member out there, but they're growing every single day. So.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we do have members, I'm certain here, of the 47 participants whose flying sites are in controlled airspace and some whose flying sites are in Class G airspace. So I guess maybe we should talk, or you should tell us a little about the expectations or what you mentioned earlier on at some of our meetings, that you expect to see at least another 200 or so Class G clubs that might be near sensitive infrastructures who may require having or may need to take a safety risk management panel in order to establish altitudes above the 400 feet level. What is your thoughts on that? And how would you tend to be able to tell us, did they identify that group? Is that group about 10% like they said? Or if they have been identified, I've had clubs ask me, am I on the border? Am I going to be looked at as potentially in an area that may require that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, Class G, it's a little still undetermined. And just to step back a little bit, if you're in controlled airspace, as I mentioned, you need authorization to fly. How that starts out if you're at a flying site is the club contact will answer some questions through an AMA questionnaire that will be sent to me and my team. We'll send that to the FAA and start working on a letter of agreement. That initial letter of agreement is typically, not always, but typically just for the altitude that's on the LAANC FAA UAS facility map, which is a map of predetermined altitudes around busy airports that everyone is comfortable allowing people to fly up to. And it's at a zero altitude really around the airport. And as you get further away, it goes out to 400 feet. If you're in a zero grid, sometimes we can negotiate and get you 100 feet or a little bit of altitude to fly. But once you sign that letter of agreement, if you'd like to fly higher, you reach out to us and we request that your club go through what's called a safety risk management panel with the FAA. And I see some familiar faces on here. I know that a few of you guys have went through that process, and Daren and Andy have been through, I think, every panel that's been in your district. AMA, the club, and about 35, 40 other representatives that use that airspace from the National Air Traffic Controllers Union, from maybe Southwest Airlines, from the Helicopter Association, Airline Pilots Association, and a host of others all get together and basically negotiate how we can allow this club to operate to whatever altitude they requested. As of right now, the highest altitude that's been requested by any club across the country is 2,000 feet. And we've had multiple clubs request 2,000 feet, and every club that has requested a specific altitude and went through the panel has received that altitude with some additional mitigations, but they have. That's been for controlled airspace. About 300, 350 AMA clubs are in controlled airspace. If we were to try to replicate that at the Class G level with 2,100 clubs, I would be long retired before we ever got through them. So we are hoping, and we have submitted a proposal to the FAA to where we say all of our clubs in Class G airspace can operate up to controlled airspace if they follow these sets of rules. And that would get every club up to either 700 feet or 1,200 feet, depending on their location. If you need to go higher, that's when Andy just mentioned that those clubs may have to go through a safety risk management panel. That's AMA's proposal. It hasn't been accepted by the FAA yet, but there's a lot of people on board with that just because it would lessen the amount of resources the FAA would have to put towards these authorizations. If not, and they would say, no, we want to go through these panels for every single one of these clubs, it would literally take decades to get through them, and we just simply wouldn't. We have a few people pushing that agenda within the FAA. We just have to get everybody sold on it. We do think we'll get there. It may take some legislation in the upcoming 2023 FAA reauthorization, but essentially and eventually we do think we'll get to that point. Dave, I see you have your hand up. I'm going to call on you before I move forward so we don't lose.
Yeah, we're in northeastern Massachusetts, and as I look at the sectional maps, we might be right on the edge of the Logan controlled airspace, but no one has ever contacted us. Should we assume we're okay? And we never fly over 400 feet or do anything like that or fly at night. We're pretty simple.
Yeah, I would assume you're okay if you haven't been contacted. We have went through that. Now it's possible you haven't, and I would reach out to me maybe tomorrow, shoot me an email or give me a call. It doesn't have to be tomorrow, but whenever you're free, and we can look that up for you in just a matter of seconds and let you know if you're in controlled airspace or not. But numerous times we go through our database and try to find all the clubs that's in controlled airspace. We send you that questionnaire to start the process. So if you haven't been contacted by us, or if you haven't gotten a phone call saying, hey, I've sent you 3 emails, why haven't you responded? Then most likely you are in uncontrolled airspace.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Do we tell our members that they should continue to keep flying at the altitudes they've flown at in Class G airspace at their flying sites until which time, say, we actually know what the prescription is going to be for us to be able to get them settled?
So
and
we do. When this rule was signed into law, actually myself and President of AMA, Rich Hansen, and the executive director, Chad Budrow, we were all in DC meeting with the head of each department within the FAA. It was actually the day before the bill was going to become law, but we knew it was going to be signed and we knew it was going to be passed. And we basically said, look, you can't restrict us to these altitudes. It's going to shut us down. And they reassured us, we are not looking to shut you down. Continue doing what you're doing. Before this becomes regulatory, before we start enforcing anything, we are going to have processes in place to allow you to get these altitudes that you need and that you want for your flying sites and for your competitions. And so that is what agreement is what we're still operating under. I just asked Rich and Chad just maybe 2 weeks ago. We're still continuing under that verbal agreement we have with the FAA, and we would support our members if any enforcement was taken on them. And they said absolutely 100%. So that's where we still continue to operate. Until they finalize all of these processes, until they get everything implemented, we are going to continue to operate how we have in the past. It's a little different in controlled airspace just because they have that process finalized, but in uncontrolled airspace, they have not. Just like they don't have a CBO for you to follow, official CBO for you to follow their safety programming. That part hasn't been implemented yet. All of these things need to be finalized before the FAA can say, okay, we are absolutely 100% done with 44809. Everybody needs to move forward as this is a complete and finalized process.
John has a question.
All right, I saw Soaring Eagle did too. I'm sorry, Soaring Eagle. I don't remember your first name, but I'm gonna let you ask that question first if you'd like.
My question was actually I just sent the message to Tom because we fly so close to Logan Airport at one of the clubs that I belong to.
Well, you're in 107th, aren't you?
Right. Yes.
We just did a panel for you, I don't know, maybe a couple, 3 months ago. I don't think that your letter of agreement is finalized yet, but it's got to be getting relatively close.
It was in December, Tyler,
Okay.
that we met. Yeah.
Okay.
And they granted us what we wanted.
Right.
And we're in Class B. And we're just about 5 miles from Logan. So we're really close.
To tell you the importance of AMA and how much respect that we do have within the community, AMA is the only organization that are going through these safety risk management panels for recreational operations. And we are requesting altitudes that many push back on. I know, Daren, I know you're a member of ALPA, but that group pushes back against us, doesn't want us to fly above 400 feet, doesn't want us to fly to 400 feet at some locations. And they're basically told to be quiet and they find a path for us to do that. I'll mention Las Vegas just because that flying site is right at the approach of commercial air traffic at extremely busy airport. They're about a mile away. The incoming traffic starts getting busy at 1,500 feet, and that club got approved for 2,000 feet. So they have a tremendous amount of respect for our safety programming, and they trust it enough to sign their name to these authorizations.
So Tyler, what is the 107 currently at? 400?
I can't answer that. I don't think so because you don't have your letter of agreement yet. Tom, what's your current letter of agreement?
Okay, our current letter of agreement is 400 feet.
Okay.
Okay, and in process is going to 700 feet.
There you go.
Okay,
You're at 400 and you're going to get approved to 700.
That's right.
If you did it in December, I would say hopefully by the end of March, you'll have that done.
yeah. And we got a 1,400-foot radius too.
John?
So no more jets down there, Tom, huh?
Tyler, John has a question.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, you guys helped out a lot with our club getting the SRM back in October, and Tyler and Andy were certainly very helpful with that. We still haven't seen a letter of agreement. Do you know how far behind they are?
Yeah, so unfortunately, from about Thanksgiving to the first of the year, the agency is almost gone, especially the division that that works on our letters of agreement and the reports. Usually, if there's no holiday break in between, it's 3 to 4 months, but I would take 2 months out. So I'm saying that you'll probably get, hopefully you'll get yours within a month. But the typical club from start to finish, from the time you actually sit down to have the SRM panel to when you receive your letter of agreement, that's about a 3-month process.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps before we get too late here, we might switch over to some questions relative to FRIA sites.
Sure. So just a quick update on remote ID. We all need to comply with one of the 3 paths of remote ID by September of 2023. The 3 paths again will be: 1, the standard remote ID, where you buy a new aircraft that was built after September of 2022 and it's got a broadcast module built in. Path 2 would be you're flying a pre-2022 aircraft and you go out and buy a broadcast module and that affixes to your aircraft. If you own 100 aircraft, you can pull it off of one, you can stick it on the other. Essentially, you will go to the drone zone where you register. That broadcast module will have a serial number on it. You'll tie that to your FAA registration number so that when that signal's being broadcast, if the police department or the FAA needed to find out who owned the aircraft, they would take that registration number to the FAA and that would give them the person who's flying the aircraft. So that's option 2. And option 3 would be that you fly at a FAA recognized identification area, which is essentially a CBO or AMA fixed flying site location that's tied to a club. So starting in September of 2022, this year, the FAA will begin accepting applications for FRIAs. AMA is going to request that all of our club sites be FRIAs, and we will submit those applications. It may be a little bit of work on your end. You may have to help us where your flying site is, or maybe determine some boundaries here or there. We don't know exactly how that process is going to look because the FAA hasn't finalized it yet. But at some point, we're going to be reaching out to you. We're going to be verifying some information, and we will be submitting that to the FAA.
Hey, Tyler, we have a question in the chat about the remote IDs. The question is from Joel. Joel, thanks for asking and using the chat. Is the broadcast module still projected to cost $50 or so?
I think some will start there, but like with everything, you'll probably get a range of costs. There's going to be quite a bit of leeway to manufacturers on maybe you just buy a broadcast module and it is $50 and it has no function other than you can register it on the drone zone and stick it on your aircraft and that's it. I think you'll have other manufacturers who maybe have an app or something along with that, a flight log where you can track all your flights and you can, keep and collect a lot of information, and maybe they charge more for that. But we are still hearing that the basic model that the FAA looked at when they made this rule is going to be in the $50 range. AMA is actually getting ready to assist with some testing on some developers who are creating remote ID. We think that will likely be in the next few months. This specific developer is a little larger than some of the others, but they're stating they can make the broadcast module smaller and keep it pretty affordable. So I think just like with cell phones or any other technology, you're going to have a wide range of actual modules and what applications will be available for each module.
Okay, great. T2 Thinker, I'm going to ask you to wait 1 second. Joel had a follow on based on what you were just saying on the chat. Does this mean that if you're flying at an AMA club site, you won't need a module?
Most likely, this is going to be an application. So you're going to apply to have a FRIA site, which when the FAA says you can apply means that you're not going to just state it, which means that they could deny your application. Do we think there's going to be a lot of flying sites denied? No, but I think there could be some. I think that if you're in a very sensitive location, if you're flying on military property, something along those lines, the person who manages that airspace, or in the military's case, the ground and the airspace, maybe they want you to have a broadcast module on. Maybe they're not comfortable with just you being a FRIA. So I would expect that there will be a few clubs that may get denied FRIA status, but the vast majority, if I had to guess and put a number on it, I'd say well over 90% will most likely get FRIA status.
And one other hand up, T2 Thinker. Thanks for your patience.
No problem. Thank you. Hey, Tyler, just a quick question on those remote modules. Are they going to have altimeters in them? For those of us that fly giant scale, or Andy?
I can give you that answer.
Okay.
The reason being is that we were the ones that talked, Tony Stillman and I, and Tyler Real knows this as well, ended up talking to the people that are getting, involved in the modules themselves. So, so your concern, stated for me again, is specifically with regard
So
to
one of these guys with a 3-second upline, you're well over 400 feet.
yeah, they're going to use geometric and the geometric altitude sensing devices, other than a barometer, using that on board the aircraft, has an accuracy about 95% of the time, being up to 150 feet off. So that means if you've got an altitude at a given site that's been given to you at, say, 700 feet where Class C begins, you could actually be flying at 850 feet, and they wouldn't be able to bring a citation against you because the level of confidence in that is within 95% is 150 feet. So that variance is going to last unless when they move forward in 2023, they decide to say you're going to have to put a barometer in it instead of use geometric. So geometric means that GPS receiver unit built into your unit is just looking at the geometry of its location based on multiple satellites, which isn't as accurate as a barometer use.
Just a little add on to that. I fly IMAC and jets, so I hear what you're saying. I just wanted to emphasize at the SRMs, and I make it a point to stress this when it comes up as a subject matter expert, defining what an altitude is for us. And you brought up the point. And what happens is we have a misunderstanding with the FAA and some of the stakeholders where if, let's say we're requesting 1,000 feet, they assume we're going to cruise at 1,000 feet. And what we're trying to teach them and let them know is those are transition altitudes. And the total length of our flight, it is minuscule, the amount of time we were at those higher altitudes. We are generally, even in IMAC, you're generally down in that 300 to 400 foot range, and you might transition for seconds on a typical sequence in an IMAC contest, for instance. So we're really pushing that issue with them in hopes of not only altitude gains, but just a general state of mind and understanding of what we do.
Well, and in the first meeting that we had, and Andy was there, was with one of the largest, or what we think will be the largest developers. And he made it a point, and he flies also. The information won't be stored anywhere. There won't be a history of altitude, so it will be real time. Once that information is read, it's essentially gone. So will they all be like that? I don't know, but that was his early protocol. Was he had no intentions of collecting and storing that altitude data.
Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Hey, Tyler, Andy, just a little admin note here. We are coming up to our published end time. I'm fine with continuing on. I'm sure Andy is, unless he collapses. He's been working hard all day on this stuff with me. But if you guys are all good to continue, I'm good to continue as well. Is there a general consensus on that? Good to go?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Anybody opposed to that? You know, if you need to leave, by all means, we're not trapping you here. But I noticed our participants level has stayed the same. So I think people are engaged in this. So let's keep on going.
Yeah, they might find something interesting. Tyler can tell you about Martha's Vineyard. And we're going to smile as we say it, because we looked at some maps and I see Daren smiling, and so is Tyler. Tyler, tell us about, we're sitting on the edge of our seats wondering what the outcome's going to be, and Tyler will tell you why.
With Martha's Vineyard, we're going to fight for them. I'll say that. They are in a unique location. They have a lot of flight paths directly over the center of their field. Their SRM panels coming up. I think it's March 8th, if memory serves me correct. They're only asking for 400 feet, and they've been there for quite a while. Unfortunately, even at 400 feet, they have, I can't remember the exact number, I think about 6,000 flight paths over that location in a 12-month period. You drop down to 300 to 400 feet, and there's another 4,000 or 5,000. So there's 10 or 15,000 flight paths directly over their field location. That being said, they've operated there for some time. They've reached out to the air traffic control facility and requested to be able to fly every day that they go out, and they have a good relationship there. It won't be so much the air traffic control facility. It'll be the people who are new to the conversation within the SRM panel that will have to educate and try to find mitigations to put in place to make everybody comfortable. So it's a busy location. It's going to be a struggle. Will we get to the 400 feet? I don't really know. I don't want to promise anything, but hopefully that the club can continue to fly at some altitude.
I was going to pull up the track hits, but I'm not going to do
that. It's a very odd situation, because we have a very wealthy community where the ATO lives on the island. So they're friends. And so the air traffic control knows the people quite well. They've been flying there 15 years, no incidents at all to report. And we got a buddy-buddy situation going on, and we've got neighbors that accept them. So we're kind of interested. What level of the wealth and the people in the power there are going to play in getting a site like this, that when Daren looked at it, and Tyler, and looked at the white lines, 15,000 of them over this field, it looked like a white path. What was it on the takeoff?
It was right. Their unfortunate position, unlike the 107th, the 107th is offset from the runway track. This club, if they were going to be in a worst case scenario, it would be a quarter mile closer to the runway. They are directly under the approach and departure path of both runways. And I said, my God, you can't move either direction. And that's where all the traffic goes. And the hits were down. I think what we say, the best chance was like 235, Tyler. If they got 200, that would be very, very lucky. And they were great about it. They understood. I mean, when they looked at those tracks too, they had the same expression we had. It's like, oh, that's pretty damning right there. And that's where the traffic comes. But they don't see anybody. They do see in a void. They actually do hear in a void. So, and they've got friendly air traffic controllers that they've been getting along with. So it's a great balance. And like Andy said, we're anxious to see how that balance of power plays out in this situation. We'll see.
Yeah, I wanted to hear from Chad before we close the meeting, but a bit about where he thinks we may be heading and what type of strategies are we using with consideration for 2023, which again, we jump into the next reauthorization period. And Chad and Tyler talked about in his program booklet that came out last month about creating a wish list for that. So my question is, do we have an idea? Are they taking what's 2018 and we're looking at that as the basis for trying to see what we need to defend ourselves against? Or are we looking at them looking to move towards a network system starting with the next considerations for 2023?
Yeah, I mean, with FAA reauthorization, unfortunately, it kind of opens everything. The baseline will be the current rules that we have in place, 44809. That's kind of where Congress will start. But we'll have a lot of commercial players, probably won't be as much, or we hope it won't be as much as what we fought back starting in 2016 to 2018. But there are some things that we will want to work towards getting in legislation. A lot of people want us to go back to 336. I mean, just to be candid and honest with you, that's not going to happen. Congress is going to take whatever rules that they write, and they're going to go to the FAA and say, are you comfortable with these becoming legislation? And the FAA would say no if Congress tried to remove full authority of us operating model aircraft from, where we currently stand. But what we need to get shored up and in legislation is something about 400 feet in Class G. We need a process that allows that. And my team and our lobbyists in DC and our FAA advisors are currently working on some proposals. What we'll do with that is we'll take that to Andy and the other council members, and they'll kind of flush out what they want and, let us know. And that's what we'll work towards. But we have a number of issues that we would like to try to shore up and protect ourselves against, not only the issues during the current implementation process, but some of the things we see on the horizon. I mean, I go to FAA meetings weekly, if not daily, it seems like anymore. But I keep hearing things about aircraft certification and things that currently don't impact us or affect us, but what could with the new FAA reauthorization. So it's best to try to pinpoint some of the trends that the industry is kind of going towards and think how that could impact us in the future and how we need to protect ourselves. TFRs, I know with the current president and the previous presidents, even that's been a big impact on some of those clubs in Delaware and Bedminster previously. And so is it worth trying to fight for some protections or some sort of waiver process for when there's presidential travel and there's a TFR put in place? Those are the types of things that we want to think about and talk about and possibly work towards getting some sort of relief in the future. So 400 feet, that's the biggest issue and the biggest concern we have. That will probably be where a majority of our efforts go to. Even if we have the FAA process in place before FAA reauthorization begins, we would still like to have that, solidified in legislation. So 400 feet, TFR issues, protecting ourselves against any future aircraft certifications. Those are some of the things that we'll be talking about and working towards as FAA reauthorization comes up.
Hey, Tyler, you had shared a link to the FAA map. Do you want me to pull that up?
Sure. Yeah, you can pull that up and maybe scroll around and you can show people just a quick glimpse of what controlled airspace versus uncontrolled airspace looks like. If you zoom in, most controlled airspace will have a LAANC grid around it. If you fall inside that grid, you are in controlled airspace. If you don't, most likely you are not. So.
You didn't have SIDEKICK available because they would show AMA flying sites.
I was trying to get that up on my laptop, Andy, and I couldn't get a good enough signal to get it up.
Yeah.
Some of the sites, you can see the little blue dots. Those are AMA sites, but this data is completely dirty. The FAA has. They were just trying to meet a congressional mandate, and they threw up some false information on their site. But
if you people want, we have UAS SIDEKICK, who we partnered with. They've included our clubs on it. So when you click on it, you'll see an icon of AMA. You'll be able to know the data of the club as well. You'll be able to see that club contact person. It's a great way to see that. Plus, as you focus in on that device, UAS SIDEKICK, we as members of the AMA get to have it for free. But you've got to sign up through the portal, which we'll have on our website, so that you go to our website. At the bottom, it'll show you the portal to go through, so it doesn't cost you anything. And that one will show you the AMA clubs and many other things. The filtering is absolutely terrific on it, and we're in partnership with them, so it won't cost you a penny.
There's the AMA there. Well, Daren's there.
Yeah.
And SIDEKICK is on
It's under media and resources.
It's at the bottom of our website. The new
And
website.
then should be under NOTAM there. There you go. LAANC, low altitude
Yeah,
authorization.
there you go, right there. You can get it. Yep. Now go up.
And SIDEKICK right there.
Yeah,
And we
that's
have this on our
the-
website.
Yeah, that's at the bottom of our website. Now you can
Link
watch
to it.
that exact video. But if you
Yep.
go further up, you'll see how to, well, you missed it. Okay. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, go to the bottom of ours and you'll see it right there.
And you
So
have a couple of
instructions-
accesses right here.
If they click on the right one, if you click on that right one, it takes you to the free sign up for AMA
Right.
only. Now watch, it'll tell you that on the screen.
The important thing about the AMA portal, you want to see this AMA when you register, is that gives you access to the clubs. It'll have a little AMA symbol where all the clubs are. And I'm sorry, I can't get a live picture of it right here because of my signal. But I have it on my phone. It's a little too small to show you, but it's a real neat app. I would strongly recommend people getting it.
Zone down if you can.
Guys, I have it up if you want me to share it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
just
You have a good signal.
Shrink it
Hold on.
down so we see the grid.
There you go.
I'll-
You should be able to share now, Tom.
Joel, I'll respond to you. Yes, there is an effort being made regarding the size of remote ID. That's something that Andy and Tony and myself have been discussing and working with developers on. Right now, we're being told that they want to get them to just a little larger than a postage stamp and under 2 ounces, if memory serves me correct. The one that a developer just brought to us, it's larger than that. To be honest, it's about the size of a business card and 2/3, 3/4 as thick as a deck of cards. So it's larger. And we let them know, hey,
Too big.
a lot of people aren't going to want something this size. He said, I know I can get a lot smaller, even probably half this size or smaller, but he's working on how to power that. So size and weight, all of those things are something that we're concerned about, and we're letting that be known to the developers.
So there was a question about Cape Ann, and Cape Ann is up here. So if you click on any of these AMA icons, it shows you which club it is. So Cape Ann is outside of Boston, and it's actually closest to Lawrence Municipal Airport, which is Class D airspace, but it's well outside of it. So I would anticipate you guys are fine. You're going to be in Class G.
Awesome,
Okay,
Tom.
fine.
Thank you for
That
doing
that
that.
answers my question. And if we're not in one of those gray areas, then we're clean.
Yeah, if you're outside of these pink or purple circles, these are the restricted airspaces.
Yeah, okay. We're up near the corner of 495 and 95.
Right.
Okay. All right, good. Thanks.
Tom, zoom in a little bit so they see the grid appear.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Just keep zooming in and wait a few seconds. It should appear. Keep going.
There you go. If you zoom in a little bit closer, it'll come up with the altitude grids.
Right.
It's not doing it. It might just be because of the network.
There you go.
So if you
Oh, there it
zoom
is. I see it. Yeah, there you go. You got it now.
the grid with the altitude numbers,
There you
so
go.
Those grids now are going to be cut into quadrants, and I don't believe they are on this, which means that you'll pick up some extra space, more additional altitude than you could before at outer limits. So one grid will be now cut and it'll be 4, which means you'll pick up half a distance more in terms of being away from a center.
yeah.
It's pretty cool, a pretty cool app, a good one to keep on you if you're going to fly, especially me, at some place that isn't a FRIA site, at the local pond, in spots that I sometimes go and fly at. I'll pull that up and get the information fairly quickly. Even the one from FAA has been improved quite a bit. Daren and I played with that the other day, and we thought that they had made a lot of improvements too. But where you're getting this one for free, you might as well continue to use it.
Yeah, and the developer of this specific UA SIDEKICK app, his name's Nathan Ruff, and he is a longtime AMA member. So that's even more reason to support him and support this app.
You know, there's one question here I don't want you to leave without it. It says, in order to get, and it's one of the questions that came from my group, in order to get amendments to LOAs for clubs to hold one-time sanctioned events at higher altitudes than permitted for a day-to-day operation, will AMA be working on these efforts with ATO, with both ATO and the FAA? And what would be a reasonable time? And the reason why we bring it up in our district, because we tend to do a lot of outreach and advocacy at airports where we set up, we do sometimes flight demonstrations during full-time air shows at Beverly, at Concord, at Plymouth. So this is part of our modus operandi lately to see 5,000, 10,000 people on a weekend and to preach to not to the choir members, but to new people that show up to see us fly and do static displays.
Eventually, yes, that is something that we're working on. We can do that right now, in all honesty, and eventually it will be on the drone zone. It'll be automated. In the original advisory circular proposal, the changes to that, they wanted 90 days notice. We told them that was too much. And that was one of our public comments. I have heard rumors from within the FAA that they have lowered that. We haven't seen it in writing yet, but to 30 days notice, which would be exceptional. They don't get anything out the door in 30 days. So if that change is accepted, that will be great for us. But when it's all said and done and implemented, if a club wants to fly at a higher altitude for a sanctioned event at a controlled airport or wherever, then you would submit that request. It's probably going to become part of the sanctioning process. We'll determine what airspace it's in. If it needs that approval, then we would submit that request. The request would come to us, to AMA, and AMA would give that to the club. And the reason for that is because the FAA already has that policy in place for Part 107 remote pilots. If a company has a dozen Part 107 pilots that does the work for them, that company requests the higher altitude, and then that company gives that authorization to which specific pilot they want. It would be the same type of scenario here. AMA would put in that request, and then they would give that request to that club for that airspace under whatever that safety programming is.
All right, I have just one last question.
Okay.
And that is, earlier on, you mentioned about 700 and 1,200 feet, which we talked about before, where the E-class level starts.
Correct.
And the concern is that you said during the waiting process, we could continue to fly with using those boundaries. What I'm concerned is, if we talk about the IAC center, at that center, we're blocked out at 700. And that's, how does that affect?
So in this interim period, while they implement, we really didn't set a specific altitude restriction. The FAA said they weren't looking to stop any of our current operations. We made them well aware that we fly, we have Aerotow at Muncie that, we go up to 2,000 feet for that or close to it. And we let them know we were going to continue to do so. What our real concern is, and where things are fully implemented, is when the airspace is down to the ground in class B, C, D, or even the surface area of E, where it touches the ground and you have an extremely high volume of air traffic. Those are the areas the FAA want to focus on and get fully implemented. And I will say, outside of night operations, really have, and through these SRMs. So that's the areas that we're really being enforced and what the FAA is looking at. In Class G airspace, even flying past that 700 or 1,200 foot ceiling, under that verbal agreement that we have with the FAA, we made them aware that we would be continuing to fly into that airspace.
Excellent, excellent. Anybody else got some questions?
I did see one difference between blue and red. Red's a little different. It could be a 99.7, they call it, which is airspace around a military property, which is a no-fly zone. There's also some red that are special flight rules areas, such as the FRIA or the SEFRA around Washington, D.C. In D.C., you'll see red, and from basically the middle of DC out to 15 miles. It's an absolute no-fly zone whatsoever. And then 15 miles to 30 miles, you can fly up to 400 feet under a special set of rules. So red means that it's just not normal operating conditions, and blue means that it would be controlled airspace and would require authorization.
Some of I answered also, and I didn't add that. That was great, Tyler. The different levels of controlled airspace as well. Sometimes that goes into it. Some smaller airports like Concord may or may not have a control tower, and that determines what kind of activities they have there. They might be not circles. They might have little extensions out. That could be for an instrument approach. And like Tyler was adding, you're going to start hearing more about this term, sensitive infrastructure. And those are like the whole list that he talked about.
Good meeting.
But I'm available. I'm in the office every single day. I check my emails almost 24 hours a day. So if you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate. If you want to just call and say, hey, where do we stand? Give me a call. Happy to do that. Happy to join these meetings as often as you're willing to listen to me. So feel free to reach out and ask me anything you'd like.
Tyler, thanks so much.
Thanks, Tyler.
Oh, you're welcome.
Appreciate it. Yeah, great meeting. Take some relaxation time. Go talk to your lovely wife. Tell her I'm giving you up for a while.
Yeah, tell Aaron we said hi, please.
Will do. All right. Well, thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it, and don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you on the next panel. Yippee.
Sounds good.
Thanks for joining us. These monthly meetings will be open forums where the district VP and AVPs or headquarter guests will be available to discuss and answer any questions or concerns your clubs may have about FAA, AMA, or aero modeling in general.